Hello and Happy New Year, everyone. It's been a couple of months now since we launched our Conversion Protection Initiative. Essentially, this is Awin's plans to improve tracking standards across the industry. We actually launched this a couple of months ago at PI Live Europe, and you can now rewatch Adam's presentation on the Awin blog. We've included a link to that in this article for you. I really recommend you taking a look because you'll get a better understanding for what we're trying to achieve and also the benefits for you. Excitingly, we're currently in the midst of lots of conversations with our advertisers to help them upgrade their tracking. And for those of you that need a quick refresher, the CPI initiative essentially means that any advertiser that doesn't have server-to-server or app tracking needs to get it integrated by April the 7th. We recognize that accurate affiliate tracking is crucial to the success of many advertiser and affiliate businesses, and also to the success of the industry, which is why it's a core goal for CPI. We also understand that it can sometimes be quite challenging to get all these tracking measures in place. So what we're doing is for any affected advertisers, they are getting ample time to make the necessary adjustments. But for those circumstances where it's not possible to make the necessary adjustments, and we know that this can sometimes be the case, we don't simply want to let legitimate affiliate sales go untracked. So instead, we're introducing a probabilistic tracking method. And what this means is that a calculated sum of sales will be added to an advertiser's program to offset any untracked sales. CPI has generated a lot of buzz in the industry, and it also meant that we've got a lot of great questions from many of you. So earlier today, I sat down with Adam Ross, Awin CEO, to answer some of those questions. So let's see what he had to say. All right, I've got Adam, Awin CEO, with us to answer some of your questions about CPI. A couple of these have come in from different people. Some of them have also come from live events that we've had. So I'll get started with number one. So if some networks use this as a way to win business from Awin, do we as publishers take a stance to only work with networks who take the same position on tracking as Awin? This was an anonymous question from a PI Live audience member.
So that's not really a decision that we can make, right? So that's a decision for each individual publisher. We do hope that publishers will take a tough line on this. We do believe that there needs to be this change in the way the industry tracks and measures. And unless all of us set very clear rules of engagement and we draw hard lines on what we consider to be acceptable and what we don't, then it's very hard to drive the necessary change. We already know from the feedback that we've had that many publishers are going to take that hard line. In fact, I think Andreu from Zilch, who joined us on stage at PI Live, is one of those that will be taking that position. So look, if anybody has any doubts, then please come and speak to us. We're happy to advise and guide. But we do feel that the more of the, as much of the industry as possible to get behind this, the more difference we can make and the more improvement we can drive.
Yeah, absolutely. And our next question almost comes from an advertiser point of view, where they say there's a common feeling in the industry that publishers just want tracking to work so that they can get paid more money, but for the same amount of activity. Can you give us any reassurance specifically to advertisers that CPI payments will be used to power the growth of their sales from affiliates and not just be pocketed by affiliate companies? This came in from Julia Stent, who is a freelance consultant.
Yeah, it's a fair question. And obviously, again, we're not in a position to tell independent publisher businesses what to do with the revenue that they earn. But the industry does operate with this incredible, an elegant, virtuous circle where the more money publishers make, the more they invest in their consumer experiences, and that drives more sales and more value. And we do really believe in that. And we've seen that over time as publishers have grown. They've really invested a lot in developing their user bases, in advertising more. And so I'm pretty confident that partners are going to use this to reinvest. But what I would urge people to do is speak to those publishers and ask them. The ones that were up on stage were very open to those types of discussions. They're very open to the idea of, giving advertisers benefits and additional exposure, in order to drive this through. I mean, everybody just wants to see the value of the work they're putting in accurately measured. And I think from that point, all sorts of great things can come.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. It's about the value of the work being accurately measured in this instance. So our third question is about, is the term no more free sales too much of a publisher biased framing for this initiative?
Yeah. Another good question. Look, this was the name of the session, the title for the session that we put on the official launch presentation. And truth be told, we were doing that because we wanted to grab as much attention as possible. And we wanted to have a controversial headline that would ensure as many people as possible heard about it, came to the session. And we were successful in that because we ran, I think, the busiest session of the entire show. I think people were, I mean, I've even seen write-ups where people said because they saw the title, they came. So I think it worked and we generated a lot of coverage. But we don't want this to be biased towards one side of the partnership equation. We do think that there's benefits to be had for everybody in accurately measuring, and most notably, for advertisers in actually understanding the true value of the activity that they engage in, so that then when they go internally to extol the virtues of the channel and attract more investment and perhaps take investment from other digital channels, that they're able to do that based on a robust foundation and robust measurement. And so we'll be changing the messaging slightly to be a bit less controversial. You're going to see a campaign launch to support this, which we're under the banner of On the Right Track, which I think is a little bit more friendly, less controversial. I think it better expresses the sentiment of what we're trying to do, and because really it's about improving tracking standards and all moving forward together in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. We want the right tracking standards and help everyone go in the same direction. And on that note, some of the questions that we've had have been almost quite practical. So our first practical question, I guess, is if as an advertiser, I can't upgrade my tracking before April 7th, how will you then calculate the probabilistic sales that are added to my account?
So this is one I would urge you to talk to your account manager about to understand specifically how it affects you, but I can give you a certain a general answer here. So if tracking has not been upgraded by April the 7th, we're going to be putting in place a set of new transactions. So a set of new transactions are going to be added to your program, and this is going to be done on a monthly basis. And we create this, it's going to be largely based from the previous month's validated transactions for your program and the individual CPI figures that are applied to your program. So these are determined by the status of your current tracking setup. So for example, if you don't have server-to-server tracking in place, there's going to be an additional 12.6% sales added to your program. If you have a transactional app and no affiliate tracking in place, it could be up to an additional 20% of sales added to your program. And if you're missing both of these, it could sum up to about 32.6% of sales added to your program. And I say that it could sum up to that because these are the default rates that we're applying in lieu of any insight that you could share with us that may alter our view. So, for example, if you can share more data with us and more insight, that may change the rate, and we will change the rates that we apply based on what you supply us. And so I hope that gives you a bit more color. But as I say, these are very specific things, and it's worth talking to your account manager about it. But let me maybe outline a specific example because it might help bring it to light. Advertiser A doesn't have server-to-server or app tracking in place. So we're going to use the default probabilistic figures of 12.6% and 20%. Last month, they had 100 validated sales from their publishers, amounting to £1,000 or euros in sales revenue. And this month, they will have an extra 32.6% in sales revenue added to their program via the CPI modeling. So in this instance, it means an extra £326 will be added. Right. So again, I want to stress, it's just an example using the standard default calculations, and the more insight you can share with us on what's going on your individual program, the more we can take this into account.
Great, thanks, Adam. So another question. Many publishers have business models that rely on tying revenue back to the original click for growth. How will revenue from CPI fit in with this?
Yeah, so I think, when it comes to the probabilistic sales that are generated via CPI, these are not linked to a specific click. So as I explained, there's sales that are being applied to an affected advertiser's program using the CPI calculations based on the previous month's validated sales from their affiliate partners. And the commission for those sales is then shared amongst those affiliate partners that generated a validated sale in the previous month. I hope that answers that.
Great, thank you. So our next question, and again, these are all anonymous questions at this point. So am I right in thinking that declined consent stops first-party tracking? So even with the upgrade to server tracking?
Yes, that's correct. So no matter what tracking you have in place, no matter how sophisticated it is, if a user declines to give consent to being tracked, we cannot track the sale. We have to observe the user's rights and choices. Now, we have had news from the UK ICO recently, and also the French regulator, CNIL, that cashback and loyalty cookies are recognized as strictly necessary. So that's a welcome update for that segment of the industry, at least, because it means advertisers who adjust their consent management platforms to reflect the change, they're going to continue to track affiliate activity regardless of whether a user gives consent. But that only applies to those specific affiliate partners and not the wider industry. But I think, as I also mentioned on stage, that's we really feel that CPI provides a basis to address this problem again in the future, and our future plans are going to involve introducing an element that covers rewarding affiliate partners for sales generated when consent is declined. So there's going to be more on that in due course, but the initial priority of this is to focus on sort of core tracking fundamentals of server-to-server and app tracking, and with time, we'll use it to cover the topic of consent as well.
Brilliant. So our final two questions are more around the specific figures for calculation. So I'll start with the first one, which is, how has the 12.6% figure for server-to-server probabilistic sales been calculated?
So we've done quite a lot of analysis at several rounds looking at the improvement in tracking performance we see when server-to-server is adopted. And we've actually published quite a bit of research on this on our blog. It illustrates the difference that we see in track sales when an advertiser has that server-to-server tracking in place. We monitored hundreds of thousands of tracking calls, and all of them showed that there's on average of 12.6% of those contained a cookie in the server-to-server call when compared to those that didn't have server-to-server. And each time we've run the analysis, the same figure has come back. So that's very much validated our decision to use this number for calculating the probabilistic sales. But we're going to keep running the analysis, and we're going to keep reviewing the data. And if there's any change to it, then of course we'll update the calculations and the figures.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the second one is more around app shares. So can we share our own numbers on app share, as we feel that this is different to your numbers?
Yeah, absolutely. I would really want to encourage you to do that. As I said, the more data that you can share with us, the more accurate we can be with this. And yeah, so please share that data with us. It bolsters the calculations. It makes them more accurate. I think some of that data should be more readily available as well. How many sales do you track in your app compared to your site? So contact our technical services team. Please make them aware of that, or your account managers, and we will adjust the CPI payments accordingly.
Brilliant. Thank you, Adam, for answering those questions and hopefully giving everyone a little bit more clarity. And thank you to so many of you who managed to send in your questions to us. We really do see CPI as a vital step in the right direction for our industry and a chance to get back to being a robust, performance-based ad model that businesses of every shape and size can have faith investing in and using it as a springboard for their own growth. So keep an eye out, because we'll be sharing a steady stream of updates and different educational pieces about CPI as the launch date nears on April the 7th. But if you do have any other feedback or questions, please feel free to get in touch with us. We'd all be happy to help you.